stabbing Tristyn Bailey 114 times, killing her, is about to face a judge in adult court. He is now charged with first-degree murder. Good morning to you. Aiden Fucci is charged as an adult. He's going to be held in an adult facility from now on.
Yeah, so this morning's hearing is an arraignment. It's a legal process required when someone is charged with a crime. And in this case, the charge against the 14-year-old has been upgraded, as we mentioned, to first-degree murder. We will bring you the hearing live as soon as it begins. It's expected to have started right now. Sometimes these things get delayed, but as soon as it begins, we will certainly bring it to you. In the meantime, we know this is a holiday weekend. There is a moderate risk of rip currents out there. We want everybody to be safe if they're heading out to the beach.
Yeah, a lot to talk about because a lot of people are going to be at the beach, at the pool.
Good morning, guys. I went ahead and muted it for now as they just are talking about weather and things as we wait for the court appearance to start. So we'll just hang tight here for a minute here. As I mentioned, it is extremely early here in California. I've actually been up since 4:30, but it's 6 right now. I'm going to go make a cup of tea to wake myself up before the big day. But let's talk a little bit about the press conference yesterday. I mean, I know that I'm sure most of you tuned into the stream yesterday where we discussed everything afterwards, but a lot to take away and a lot to digest. I think it's still so interesting, some of the things that were said in relation to one of the questions the reporter had asked. And I remember we talked about this yesterday and it was a little bit muttered under her breath, but she had asked, oh, you know, we heard that he admitted to striking her, but not stabbing her. Is that true? And I don't know if the arrest information and arrest report has been circulating. I have a copy of it. So if you haven't seen it, let me know and I can pop it up here on the screen at some point. But it does show that he does admit when he does go into police custody that he struck her, hitting her to the ground, but he doesn't ever admit to the actual crime of stabbing her itself. And so I thought that was interesting. Now, did he strike her as a method to subdue her, to make it easier to carry out his horrific plan? Possibly. Or was it that they were, in fact, with other friends at the time, all the friends dispersed because we know they were hanging out at a friend's house prior, according to the arrest report at least, and then maybe he tried to pursue her or take things further. She said no, he got mad, he struck her, and then that's why he decided to carry this out, even though we know it was premeditated and he was going to do this to anybody. Oh, here we go.
We want to get back to that big story. This is a breaking news alert out of St. Johns County. Right now, 14-year-old Aiden Fucci is going to be facing a judge for a second time in less than a month. This time, he is charged with first-degree murder as an adult. So this is going to be in adult court.
Right. We are waiting for that hearing to begin. It was supposed to begin at 9 o'clock. As soon as it happens, we'll bring it to you. But we learned a lot of information yesterday about this investigation. Aiden Fucci is accused, of course, of killing 13-year-old Tristyn Bailey. They were schoolmates. They lived in the same neighborhood. Prosecutors say the 14-year-old stabbed Bailey 114 times. Just so upsetting to hear those details yesterday during the news conference at 4 o'clock. That's when the state attorney revealed those disturbing new details about how the 13-year-old died.
Yeah, and these are details that had been talked about but never officially released from investigators here. I want to warn the viewers, the information that we're talking about here is graphic, it is disturbing. R.J. Larissa says Tristyn Bailey was stabbed 114 times. That came out in the autopsy report from the medical examiner. Now look at this video. This is video that I shot with my photojournalist, Curtis Bottoms. We were there. This was the day after they found Tristyn Bailey's body in that same area, right around the corner there. And we were there about 7 o'clock at night, Jen. When the dive team went in, you could hear them yelling for hands, for evidence technicians, and they pulled out the knife. And we have since learned that this is the knife believed to be the murder weapon. It's a buck knife, so it's a folding knife, and the tip was broken off. They were able to recover that during the autopsy. It's one of the disturbing
Found in
details
her
there.
body, yeah.
They also found out that 49 of her wounds were defensive. So we're talking about to her hands, to her arms, to her face, where the state attorney said she was literally fighting for her life. And you've gone through this arrest affidavit. The details are in here as well.
And a lot of this also, and in fact, when the state attorney was speaking yesterday, he said, look, you know, there is no question in our minds that this is a case that needs to be tried in an adult court, specifically noting not only the physical evidence, the fact that there are friends of the 14-year-old who identify that this is the same kind of knife that the 14-year-old frequently carried with him, the fact that there are two friends who had conversations, according to the prosecutor, with Fucci, and Fucci basically saying that he was planning to kill someone, telling one person that he was going to grab someone and drag them into the woods and kill someone. Now, no one was ever mentioned, no person was ever identified according to the prosecutor, but given that information, given the evidence also that was found inside his bedroom, he said, we had no choice, given the dramatic amount of evidence here, to make this decision to charge him now with first-degree murder, even though he's only 14.
And look, there were hundreds of thousands of people calling for a first-degree murder charge and an adult prosecution right away, but this takes time. And you can't just have a first-degree murder charge
an
out of the
indictment
blue.
from a grand jury,
You got to have that grand jury indictment.
We will go over that entire arrest report after this.
Confidential until it was unsealed. So all of this took time, and we were able to hear these details for the very first time on camera from the state attorney, R.J. Larizza. So I want you to listen again with a warning about the content you're going to hear.
It's not just the fact that she was stabbed 14 times, or 114 times. It's also information that we were able to glean from witnesses. The defendant made statements to several people that he intended to kill someone. He didn't say who that was, but he indicated to witnesses that he was going to kill someone by taking them in the woods and stabbing them, which are certainly the facts of this case.
It's so hauntingly similar to the facts of this case, the statements that he said before. And I went back and I asked the state attorney about these other teens that apparently knew about his homicidal plans. It does not appear that they've been arrested. He did say how disappointed he was. He says parents need to step forward and do a better job at raising their kids. And he pointed that at Aiden Fucci's family, obviously, as well as the families of these other children. And I just got to say, Jen, these are seasoned investigators who have worked dozens, some of them hundreds of homicides. State attorney's office, sheriff's office, homicide team, the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. I really felt just tension and chills in the room as we learned those details.
Well, because so many of them are fathers. And at the end of the day, you know, hearing about these details, all I could think about as a mother of a 13-year-old girl and a 16-year-old boy is, can you imagine Tristyn's parents knowing that this is how their daughter lost her life? I mean, it just breaks your heart. And look, teenagers don't always do the best things. They're only teenagers and they don't know, you know, and, you know, there was a party that was, you know, a gathering, you know, that night, and who would have ever thought that anything bad could have happened? And it's just terrible that this is about a conversation that, of course, reminds all of us. I've had it as soon as I heard about what happened to Tristyn. I had it with my 13-year-old. You know, they think that they know everything, but at the end of the day, this is about educating not only other teenagers that when someone says something like this, you need to tell an adult and you need to take it seriously, as much as you might just, you know, brush it off as, oh, maybe he was only joking or whatever. But the reality is that you just have to open that line of communication and make sure it's there with your teen.
And there's so many rumors out there, especially among the teens in that community. And that's why the state attorney, and in the past when I spoke with the sheriff and the lead detective here, they've been so forthcoming about it, because they say, hey, we want to get this information right. And even last night on my social media, I had so many people reach out to me with the hashtag Free Aiden, and they're supporting him. And they think that
I just want to quickly say, yes, they were at a gathering that night. I will pull up the arrest report after this and walk you through everything, where he also admitted to hitting Tristyn to the ground.
Day. We have been in contact with them. We've posted that on our website. We also have it on our social media. But long story short, Jen, they say we appreciate today's outcome. It's directly the result of the thorough and comprehensive work of the St. Johns County Sheriff's Office and the State Attorney's Office. They appreciate the respect from the community, from those who are respecting them. They have a lot of faith in God, and then also faith in the legal system.
It sounds like this is a mounting case, certainly against this 14-year-old. We are waiting for that hearing to begin. Again, it was supposed to begin about 10 minutes ago. We're hearing that there might be some activity going on in the court. So let's stay with us here because we're going to continue to bring you this hearing, which is expected to begin any minute now. I want to just talk, having been, attending the news conference and given the arrest warrant, which really revealed new details and building this case as investigators have been doing, not just from St. John's County SO, State Attorney's Office, the Sheriff's Office, but also with the State Attorney's Office. There were things that were found, according to this arrest warrant and this affidavit, in this 14-year-old's room, in his bedroom, that were hidden, that specifically link him, correct?
Yeah.
According to what we're hearing, to Tristyn?
Yes, and I was actually at the house when the crime scene investigators were searching. This is Aiden Fucci's family's home. He lives there. He lived there with his mom, Crystal Smith, and his stepdad. And they found her DNA, her blood on his shoes and on his sweatshirt inside that house. And I remember talking to the sheriff at the time. He said that Fucci's family members were not cooperating. So they had to get a warrant. So it took time to get a warrant to get in there. But the detectives always get that warrant, especially on a case like this. So we do want to go to this court hearing right now. You can see the judge in the top right, and you can see what appears to be Aiden Fucci there for his first appearance in adult court on a first-degree murder charge.
And welcome.
Let's listen in.
Hang on one second, folks. We're having some audio issues.
Okay, obviously there are some audio issues going on right now with the judge. He's trying to make sure that both the public defender as well as the prosecutor are able to hear everything, and that the 14-year-old can hear this proceeding as well. This is basically an arraignment.
All right, good morning again, everybody, and welcome. Today is May 28, 2021. I'm Judge Maltz. This is the first appearance in the state of Florida versus Aiden Fucci, which is case number 21-825 CF. Are you Aiden Fucci?
Yes, sir.
Okay, very well. State is here represented by Mr. Lewis. Mr. Fucci is here represented by Ms. Peoples. Good morning, everybody.
Morning, Judge.
All right, Mr. Fucci, if you'll raise your right hand for me, please. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that any testimony you give today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, sir.
Okay, you can put your hand down. All right, Mr. Fucci, let me tell you what first appearance is. The purpose of a first appearance is to advise you of what the charges are against you, to let you know if there is probable cause to detain you on these charges, to address the issue of your bond if appropriate, and to advise you of some rights that you have. So I am going to start with advising you of some very valuable rights that you have under both the United States and Florida constitutions. First off, you have the right to be represented by an attorney at this and every stage of the proceedings against you. And if you cannot afford to hire one, one will be appointed for you at no cost. I know that the Public Defender's Office is currently appointed to represent you. Judge Anthony had a hearing last week and determined that the Public Defender's Office could represent you in this matter. So I am going to reaffirm that appointment of the Public Defender's Office at this time. You also have the right to remain silent. That is also referred to as a right against self-incrimination. What that means is that no one can force you to talk about your case while your case is pending. Keep in mind that everything this morning is being recorded. There's also an assistant state attorney on the line. So if you say anything that's incriminating this morning, it may very well be used against you at a later time. Do you understand these rights as I just explained those to you?
Yes, sir.
All right. So let me tell you what you are charged with. You have been indicted by the St. Johns County Grand Jury on the charge of first-degree premeditated murder. That is a capital felony that is normally punishable by up to death or life imprisonment. In your case, because you are not yet 18 years old, death is not a possible sentence pursuant to the Florida and United States Supreme Courts, but this charge does carry a maximum penalty of life imprisonment. Do you understand the charge against you?
Yes, sir.
All right, there is probable cause to detain you on this charge pursuant to the indictment issued by the St. Johns County Grand Jury yesterday, as well as the arrest affidavit that I have previously reviewed. The indictment in capias that followed set your bond at none. Is the state still asking that he be held without bond? Mr. Lewis?
That is correct, Judge. The state's request is no bond.
All right, Ms. Peoples, do you want to be heard on that issue?
We'll address that issue at a later date, Your Honor, with appropriate motions and witnesses.
Okay, thank you. Having reviewed the appropriate paperwork, I will preliminarily make a determination that proof is evident, presumption is great. So you will be held without bond. Mr. Fucci, do you have any questions about these proceedings today?
No, sir.
All right, the next step in these proceedings will be an arraignment unless your lawyer or lawyers formally waive your arraignment in writing, and that will take place in the next week or two. Anything further from the state?
Nothing further from the state, Judge.
Anything further from the defense, Ms. Peoples?
No, Your Honor.
All right, that will conclude your first appearance, Mr. Fucci. Everybody have a good day.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, guys. So really quickly here, what I want to do is, let me close this out really quick. Let's recap that really quick. Obviously not much. It was just a quick first appearance. I'm going to turn my camera on here really quick. And guys, it's 6 a.m. So just cut me some slack. Okay, so what I'm going to do, and I'm like wearing my true crime pajama shirt, how embarrassing. I'm going to pull this up here and we're going to go through the arrest report because we just heard that he will not be considered for the death penalty because he is a minor, but he could possibly either face life in prison without the possibility of parole or the possibility of parole after 25 years. And I mean, the yes sir, no sir thing was killing me because it's just like, what? You're not a polite kid. Give me a break. Anyways, let's go here through the arrest report because I know there was a lot of conversation earlier in the chat wondering, did they sneak out together? Were they at a party? Were they at a group hangout? And here it very clearly indicates that they were with a group of friends at a mutual friend's house. So I'm going to read this, and this is page 1 of a few that I'm going to read to you. So you can see below where the probable cause is listed out. It says on Sunday, May 9th, 2021, at approximately 1000 hours at St. Johns County Sheriff received a call in reference to a missing female. That was 10 a.m. The initial investigation led deputies to contact the above named defendant who provided an initial statement. The defendant's story changed several times, but ultimately made several admissions. The defendant admitted to being with the victim at a mutual friend's house and leaving at approximately 1:10 with the victim. The defendant admitted to walking north along North Durban Parkway, which was verified with video surveillance footage obtained from the North Durban Amenity Center, which depicted 2 subjects resembling the description of the victim and the defendant walking north. And if you watched my previous video, we actually outlined that entire path that they walked, which is about a 3-mile path to that entry area where they go into the wooded area at the dead end of the cul-de-sac on Saddlestone Drive. Here it goes on to say the defendant admitted to engaging in an argument with the victim in which he forcefully pushed the victim to the ground, striking her head. The defendant further admitted to walking around and got home at approximately 3:30 a.m. Now, this is what's very interesting, and I mentioned this earlier in the stream. Yesterday, during the press conference, one of the reporters, and it was so tough to hear, but she had asked, I heard that he admitted to striking her but not stabbing her. Is that in fact true? And he wasn't willing to confirm or deny or shed any light on that. But here we can see in the arrest report, he did strike her. It makes me curious as to, we already know that this crime was premeditated and that he was going to execute this crime on somebody at some point. But was that because he wanted to seize the opportunity and he wanted to get her to the ground so that it would be easier for him to attack? Or could it have been, if they were at a mutual friend's house and they were all hanging out and then they walk to this wooded area, did he try to pursue her? Was he interested in her? Did she reject his advances? Did that anger him, making him strike her to the ground? And then he thought, okay, I'm going to execute my plan now. I just think, it's disgusting and it makes me wonder. It goes on to say video footage obtained from a home on Saddlestone Drive revealed 2 subjects walking east on Saddlestone Drive at approximately 1:45 a.m. One subject was wearing what appeared to be shorts, a light-colored hooded sweatshirt, and white shoes with a black Nike logo. The second subject appeared to be wearing black pants and a black shirt. The video footage depicted only one subject wearing the shorts and light-colored hooded sweatshirt walking west on Saddlestone Drive at approximately 3:27 a.m. And that was when Aiden reemerged out of that wooded area. And the subject walking west was carrying a pair of white shoes with a black Nike logo. Those were his shoes that we now know he had removed, and he was complaining that the reason he had removed them was because his feet hurt. And I know there was a lot of conversation too about, she was in the video surveillance wearing her cheer outfit or her cheer shorts. It's clearly stating right here, he was in shorts and a hooded sweatshirt. Maybe that was where the mix-up was, and that the other subject was wearing the black pants and a black shirt. The defendant was transported to the sheriff's office and placed into an interview room. While alone in the interview room, which was audio and video recording, the defendant's mother mentioned something about video surveillance depicting the defendant carrying his shoes. The defendant admitted he took his shoes off because his feet hurt. The victim was located deceased on the south end of a retention pond located just to the east of the cul-de-sac of Saddlestone Drive. And again, in that previous video, we outline this and show you exactly that route to that pond and where that area is, if you're interested in looking at the path that was taken that night. The victim appeared to have significant injury to her head and other trauma and was wearing black pants with a black shirt. It should be noted the defendant's residence is located approximately 0.3 miles from the location where the victim was discovered, which is consistent with the timeline established from the video surveillance. A search warrant was executed on the defendant's residence, which several items were located within the defendant's bedroom, which were consistent with clothing observed in the previously mentioned video surveillance, and we now know that there was DNA, blood on that clothing. We also know that his parents were not cooperating in the beginning, according to investigators, and they would not allow the search, and that they did have to wait to bring that search warrant to have that executed and gather that evidence. Furthermore, some of these items yielded a presumptive positive test result for the presence of blood. Based on the defendant's statements, the video surveillance, and the items of evidentiary value obtained from the defendant's bedroom, probable cause was established for homicide. And you can see all of the information there. I put this up on the screen earlier too. This isn't the exact murder weapon, but I do want to show everybody, there were questions as to what is a buck knife. This is a folding buck knife. You can see it's a pocket knife, has a strong blade. We now know out of those 114 horrible wounds, the final blow broke off the tip of this in her scalp, which in my opinion is the only reason he stopped from this brutal attack, and because his weapon quite literally broke in half and he could not continue on anymore. And it's not only, in my opinion, overkill, which I'm sure everybody would agree with, and we know she had that 50 defensive wounds, but it strikes me as overkill and a crime of passion. But my question is, how much longer would he have gone had the weapon not broke? It blows my mind. Okay, let me go over here really quick to the chat and get some of the questions. Okay, I do want to address this really quick. Thank you, Sam, for putting this in here. There were a lot of comments on my most recent video saying, well, why didn't the parents know that she was going out? What business does a 13-year-old have out in the middle of the night? The parents should have been more aware of what was going on in her life. We will absolutely do no sort of parent blaming here. No victim blame. Sorry, I hit my mic. No victim blaming here. None of that, because that is awful. That is disgusting. And there's just no place for that here. So if that's the kind of crap you feel like leaving or commenting, you're going to quickly be hidden. So this hasn't been released yet as to why they went to that particular wooded area. In the beginning of, when was it? Like 2 videos back when we did outline that path, we talked about the possibility before there was any confirmation that they were at a mutual friend's house. We talked about the possibility of it being a local meetup spot because, you know, so many different high schools and middle schools have those where you meet up. It's the late night spot because you can't go to each other's houses because your parents would freak out. So I'm not sure if after they were all at that mutual friend's house, if maybe they all walked to that wooded area together to hang out, or if maybe, I mean, it wasn't on the route home because if you look at that path, they go north and then east on, they go north up North Durban, then east on Saddlestone, then he comes back out west and it drops back down to where that amenity center is. So it was a destination, in my opinion. I don't think it was somewhere they happened to pass on their route home from the mutual friend's house. So we still need to figure out what brought them to that area. Were they with other friends at that area and then all of the other friends dispersed and went home and then he sees the opportunity before they left or before Tristyn left to go home? We're still waiting on a lot of that. Yes, amen. You know what, Nadia, I don't mean to sound rude, but there are a lot of cases, if you have followed true crime for even just a tiny, tiny nanosecond, there are a lot of cases in which there are no signs. There's no previous activity of harming animals. There's no previous outcries. There's no stalking. There's so many crimes where it really is a first occurrence and a first instance. So that's not to say that there weren't things in his behavior, because during the press conference yesterday, we know that they wouldn't speak out on, they said he had no criminal background, but they wouldn't speak out on if he was in trouble at school or if he had any sort of history with being a troublemaker. So maybe there were signs, but they haven't released them yet. But oftentimes in cases, there are absolutely none. And I'm not going to diagnose anybody here because I don't have a medical degree, but it's like, it's a true psychopath who just, it's embedded in their brain and then they go one day. And so it's not always indicative through the child's behavior. I believe that they were just friends. All right, so we know he's being held without bond, which is great. The public defender was saying that she is going to come back and discuss that and probably put in a motion to have that changed once she has more witnesses. I can't imagine that will change because clearly he is a danger to society. But we're going to wait and see when he enters his plea, if he is going to strike a deal of some sort so that he can get the possibility of parole at 25 years. We know the death penalty now is off the table because he's a minor. And let me see, what else here do I have? I think we went over everything in detail in yesterday's video. So if you want to catch up on all of the details that were released, go check that one out after this. Let me go here really quick. Hasn't been confirmed, but I did find it interesting yesterday that during that press conference, when it was asked if it was sexually motivated or if there was any evidence by the medical examiner of SA taking place, he wouldn't speak on it. If it were a clear-cut no, in my opinion, I think he would have said something to shut down all of the rumors. And unfortunately, that leads me to believe that maybe there was something else behind this that will come out later. And we know that they talked about bloodstains and a lot of DNA. What other DNA did they find is what I'm curious about. And if he struck her to the ground, was that the moment in which he wanted to seize the opportunity because maybe she didn't accept his advances, that he could have forced himself on her and then didn't want her to tell, so he executed that crazy sick-ass plan that he had been wanting to do. I mean, there's so many different ways you could think about it, but based on what was said yesterday and how they will not speak out on that, it leads me to believe that something did take place. I've heard this too, Anne, but it hasn't been confirmed. Right now, it has been said that Aiden is the lone suspect in this. But that being said, very often in cases, they will say that because they don't want to spook the other suspects into hiding or into coming up with a different story, getting rid of evidence. They don't want them to know that they're on their trail, essentially. So we don't know if this is true or not. As of now, we know that none of the other friends who he made that outcry to, that he was going to commit this crime, none of them have been arrested. And a lot of people are asking, why haven't they been? Unless they knew what was going to happen, it's technically hearsay, and they wouldn't be able to be charged as an accessory yet. Yes, his parents. I'm sorry. I thought you meant Tristyn's parents. They haven't publicly spoken out. The only reaction they had was after he was arrested, they filed for that indigent status, and that's what made him get the public defender. And I haven't seen any statements from them. No, but we do know that they weren't cooperative in the beginning, and that's why they had to get a search warrant. I snuck out quite a few times when I was young too. And like I said, there was that local meetup spot. And for us, it was called The Log, which it's like, how dumb are you at 14 years old? But we would go there and hang out, and some people would smoke pot and do this. I didn't, but I remember one time maybe I was 16 at the time I was drinking. And it's just not, that saying that nothing good happens after midnight is so true. And maybe I'm just saying that now because I'm older and I'm a mom, but nothing good comes after midnight. We won't find out most of our questions until his trial. Will his trial be on live? I would imagine that they will stream it. It's sometimes, depending on how publicized it is, they only allow a certain amount of reporters and people in the courtroom. But I would imagine that we'll be able to stream it. But it hasn't been announced yet. Some of you were saying you don't even think there will be a trial. Maybe, it would be fantastic if he just did the right thing, took a plea deal, pled guilty, and didn't have to put her family through the horrific journey of a trial and having to hear all of the brutal details all over again. So let's just hope that he has a shred of humanity in him and does the right thing. We don't know if he was being bullied. We don't know what his demeanor was. I think as the police interview the friends who he previously confided in that he was going to execute this plan on somebody, I would imagine that they will start to share more of his behavior, his demeanor. I'm sure as they comb through his tech and his text messages, internet searches, all of these things, they'll start to learn more. But as of now, we don't know anything about his state of mind. We do know he did have friends because he confided in them that he planned to kill someone, which was so interesting because he gave himself that 30-day marker. He said, within 30 days, I'm going to commit this crime. It's going to be in the woods. I'm going to stab the person to death. And I feel like, why did he give himself that specific time window? It's just very weird to me, the whole thing. Will he be found mentally competent is the question. That is the question of the hour, especially now what we saw happen yesterday with Lori Vallow. God, that is a fantastic question. And I think it's really interesting. And I want to go back to that picture though, when he was first taken in for questioning and he was in the back of the police car and he threw up that peace sign and took Snapchat and said, hey, has anybody seen Tristyn? Someone, and I can't remember if it was in my, I'm gonna keep moving from the mic. I can't remember if it was in my Discord or if I saw it on Facebook or where it was, but somebody had zoomed in onto that and they saw that he had like a Band-Aid or something across the bottom of his hand. And it looked as though he had been cut, which was probably from the forceful, act of stabbing. But he seemed, to me at least, very smug in that picture, and almost like a sign of like, I got away with it, not got away with it in the sense that he wasn't going to get caught, but like executed my plan, did what I said I was going to do, almost like a sign to his friends who he told he was going to be doing this, like, and calling out who he did it to by saying, has anyone seen Tristyn? At like, so that his friends would see him and be like, holy shit, he did it. Like, it's just sick. The whole thing is sick. I agree. As much as I want justice and I want him to be held life without parole, mods, if you see anything in the comments about, I saw somebody talking about putting money on his books to, for anybody who harms him, any kind of threatening stuff like that, please just hide the people immediately, because we're not doing that here. I agree with you. I hope he never gets parole. And I know that that's a very divided statement. A lot of people believe because he's still a child and his brain is not fully developed yet that he should be allowed that opportunity. And it's just a very personal decision for everybody, whether you agree with the death penalty or not, whether you agree with life without parole or not, especially if a minor is involved. It's a very personal thing. He did say, yes, in the press conference yesterday, they did say that for anyone who is making threats and threats to the family, which is so disgusting, like who is threatening this family, that they are going to be pursuing legal action. The first appearance was today, just where they announced his charges and said bond or being held with no bond, and we haven't received a first hearing date yet. Part of me thinks that they will do a plea deal, and the only reason I say this is because he's now being represented by a public defender. I think that in the coming week or so, if we see that his counsel changes and his family hires private counsel, then I don't think that they will be taking a plea deal, because I believe that'll show that their intention is to fight this. But if he sticks with the public defender, I think they will take a plea deal based on the evidence they have against him and based on the charges and him being tried as an adult. I think he will. It's very sad. It's very sad. And unfortunately, the age groups just keep getting younger and younger. I assume you're talking about Tristyn, not Aiden. What do you mean? Did he try to do? Oh, you mean in the hearing? No, he hasn't said anything. It was just yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir. And he hasn't admitted to anything yet. The only thing he's confessed to is hitting her and knocking her to the ground. He hasn't confessed to any of the stabbing. We don't know that yet. We don't know if they shared it with their parents, if they shared it with their peers, if they shared it with teachers. We don't know if it even went through the trail of communication. It's just what's so sick, and I was talking with my husband about this last night, is these young kids will do anything to go viral. They will do anything. So it's almost as though, I don't know if they know the full weight of what their decision and actions will carry in the long term, or if they're just so consumed with the idea of like the attention and the notoriety and going viral that they do these things. But it's like social media has destroyed us in so many ways that when you are young and so impressionable, it's like laser vision. That's all they care about. And it takes them to these crazy places to do these crazy things, whether it's sending nude photos, posting crazy videos, being an underage person on OnlyFans, committing murder, like whatever, like taping stuff at frat houses, like all of these things. And it's like, all because you want notoriety on social media. It's so crazy and really scary, really scary. So technically, if you are a minor, even if you're being charged as an adult, you apparently can't get the death penalty. The most you can get is life without parole. Chelsea, it's an interesting question. They were in the woods. And again, just to go back to that previous video where I outlined the map, I show you how secluded that area is where that pond was. It isn't very likely that anybody would hear her screams. However, I included a piece of surveillance footage in that video as well. And it does look near the construction site right outside of the pond that there was a witness with a dog. I don't know if that person may have heard something, but as far as we know right now, no. You're welcome. All right, guys, it is 6:45, so I'm going to go make some tea and get ready because my first meetings start at 8, but I wanted to jump on here and give you guys an update as soon as it came out and show you guys the first appearance. If you want to stay updated and you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you do so on your way out before clicking out of this so that you get notified as I go live with updates and new updates with this case get posted. And also, please don't forget, give this a thumbs up, drop a blue heart for Bailey's family. We want to show for the Bailey family. It's early. We want to show support for them and just keep them in your continued thoughts and prayers. Thanks for tuning in so early with me today, guys. We will talk soon. And until the next case, please, please, please stay safe.